My name is Maya Jackson. I'm a mother, a wife, a black woman. And this is my story. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, in the summer of 1986. Middle child. 3 girls, 1 small house, and a whole lot of noise. My mama worked nights as a nurse. My daddy ran a body shop, when he wasn't running from his past. Our neighborhood was tight. We knew our neighbors, watched each other's kids, shared plates on Sundays. But it was still Alabama. Still the South. Still America. I knew from early on that my skin meant something. To some people, it meant less. To others, it meant threat. To me, it meant survival. I went to a mostly black high school, got decent grades, kept my head down. Mama told me, be twice as good, Maya, always twice as good. When I got into Howard University, we celebrated like I won the lottery. Because in our world, that's what it felt like. College changed everything. New city, new faces, new air. And that's where I met him. Liam. A white boy from upstate New York with blue eyes, a crooked smile, and no clue how loud he chewed gum. He was in my sociology class, sat 3 rows back, always raised his hand. Always said things that made people look at him sideways. But he wasn't like the others. He listened. He asked questions. He didn't pretend to understand. And over time, I started looking forward to those questions. To the way his eyes stayed on mine just a little longer. We started talking after class, then studying, then walking. And before I knew it, we were more than classmates. My girls warned me, "Girl, don't catch feelings for that white boy, he ain't built for our world." Maybe they were right. Maybe I was naive. But when he looked at me, I felt seen. Not just for my curves, or my hair, or my skin, but for my mind, my fire, my quiet. And I fell. Hard. Liam and I spent that first semester dancing around each other. Study sessions turned into long walks. Long walks turned into late-night phone calls. And then one night, he kissed me. Right there, outside the dorms, under a busted streetlamp. And I swear to you, my knees almost gave out. I laughed. He apologized. I kissed him back. That was the beginning. Of what? I didn't know yet. But what I did know was that I was scared. Scared of what people would say. Of what my parents would think. Of what it would mean to love someone who didn't know what it meant to be me. I started seeing the stairs. On campus. In the coffee shop. Even from people I thought were friends. One day, a black guy from my dorm pulled me aside. "You really with that colonizer?" I didn't respond. But it stuck with me. Was I betraying something? My roots? My people? And Leo, he didn't always get it. Didn't understand why I got quiet after certain looks. Why I didn't want to hold hands in certain parts of town. He'd say, "Maya, people stare at us because we're cute." I'd laugh. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just that. There was one night. He brought me home to meet his family. Upstate New York. Snow everywhere. His mom smiled too hard. His dad didn't smile at all. At dinner, his uncle said, "So, Maya, what do your people think about all this?" I wanted to crawl under the table. But I smiled. And said, "We think your mashed potatoes need more salt." Liam laughed too loud. His mom did that tight-lipped smile. His uncle didn't say another word to me the rest of the night. Later, I told Liam how I felt. He got defensive. Said I was overthinking. That they were just curious. That was the first real fight we had. And I cried. Not because of what he said, but because I realized how far apart our worlds really were. But even in the fear, even in the disconnect, I still loved him. And love isn't always rational. It's messy and risky. And sometimes, it means leaping before you know if there's a net. We got married on a rainy Saturday in June. Not because we wanted rain, but because the venue was cheap that day. It was a small ceremony. My mama was there, wearing her Sunday best and holding back tears. Liam's parents came too, but they didn't say much. His mother smiled in every photo. His father barely touched his plate. But I didn't care. Because Liam was looking at me like I was the only woman in the world. Like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. We moved into a one-bedroom apartment in D.C., not far from campus. Second floor, leaky pipes, paper-thin walls. But it was ours. We had no money. Like, counting coins at the gas station kind of broke. But we made it work. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing by day, tutoring by night. Liam taught part-time and chased writing gigs wherever he could. Some nights we'd eat ramen by candlelight, not for romance, but because the power got shut off. But we laughed. God, we laughed. We made fun of each other's student loans, argued over what counted as real toilet paper, made love on a mattress on the floor. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And in those early years, we learned everything. How to fight, how to forgive, how to carry each other when one of us couldn't stand. But the world didn't always see us as love. Some saw a fetish, others, a mistake. And every time someone said, "Oh, are you two together?" like we were a glitch in the Matrix. It stung. Once, an older white woman at the grocery store asked Liam, "Is she your nanny?" I laughed. He didn't. That was the first time I saw rage in his eyes. He wanted to say something. But I grabbed his hand and whispered, "Not here, not like this." Because even though I had a ring on my finger, I still knew the rules. Still knew what it meant to be a black woman in America, even with a white man by my side. But through it all, he held me, tried to learn, tried to understand. And for a while, that was enough. Our daughter came first. Autumn rain tapping on the hospital windows. I remember her cry. Strong, loud. Like she already knew the world wasn't going to be soft with her. We named her Ava Rose. She had my skin, Liam's eyes, a crown of dark curls. And when they handed her to me, I felt my heart break open. In the best way. 2 years later, we had our son, Caleb James, born during a snowstorm. Liam barely made it to the hospital. He slipped on the sidewalk but didn't drop the coffee. That man, always holding on to the wrong things. But Caleb, he was quiet when he arrived. Too quiet. The nurses panicked. I held my breath. And then, a cry. Soft, but there. 2 babies. 1 girl, 1 boy. One the color of rich coffee. The other like warm caramel. Our own little storm and sunshine. I thought I was ready to be a mom. To raise biracial babies in a world that still struggles to see them whole. But nothing could have prepared me for the questions, the assumptions, the looks. In the grocery store, are they adopted? At daycare, oh, you must be the babysitter. And when I said, I'm their mother, some people blinked. Like it didn't compute. Even family sometimes got it wrong. Liam's aunt sent Ava a white baby doll for her birthday. She said, I thought she'd relate to this one more. My mama pulled me aside one day and whispered, don't let them lose their roots, Maya. As if love could wash away culture. I carried all of it. The invisible weight of what it meant to raise children who belonged to both worlds. At night, I'd watch them sleep. Their little hands curled under their chins. And I'd wonder how long I could protect them from the world. From the questions. From the names. From the pain I knew was coming. And yet, I loved them more than I feared for them. They were mine. Ours. And that, I believed, would be enough. It started small. Like a whisper behind a closed door. Soft enough to ignore. But sharp enough to sting. Ava had just turned 5. She was bright, curious, always asking questions. She loved pink sneakers and butterflies. She thought the world was full of magic. One day, she came home from kindergarten, quiet. Not her usual self. I asked what was wrong. She looked down and said, why did God make me brown, Mommy? I felt like my heart stopped. I knelt beside her. Asked what happened. And she said, Lila said I look dirty. She said I'm not a real princess. Lila. Some blonde-haired, blue-eyed classmate from a nice family. I wanted to scream. Instead, I held my daughter. Told her she was made of sunlight and strength. That her skin was not something to hide, but something to shine. Later that week, I spoke to her teacher. A white woman in a floral blouse and polite tone. She said, kids say things. They don't mean it. We don't want to make a big deal. But it was a big deal. Because that was the first crack. The first time the world told my child she wasn't enough. And then came Caleb's turn. He was 7. Had just joined a soccer team. The only black kid on the field. After a game, I overheard one dad say, "Kid runs fast." Figures. Like he was some wild thing built to entertain. Not a boy. Not a son. Liam didn't hear it. But I did. And I carried it all the way home. That night, I sat alone in the bathroom. Lights off. Door locked. And I cried. Because I realized, this wasn't a one-time thing. This would be a pattern. A quiet, constant war. A war my children didn't ask for. One they'd have to fight just to be seen as human. And I, as their mother, had to be both armor and healer. So I dried my face. And the next morning, I taught Ava how to say, "My skin is beautiful." 10 times in the mirror. Every day. And I told Caleb, "You are not a jerk. You are not a stereotype. You are my boy." Because even if the world didn't see them, I would. Always. The thing no one tells you is that love doesn't erase difference. It doesn't make things easier. Sometimes, it makes them harder. Especially when your partner doesn't see what you carry. Liam tried. God, he tried. But there were days I felt like I was screaming into a void. Explaining things that shouldn't need explanation. Like why I don't feel safe when a cop pulls us over. Or why I don't want our kids walking into certain stores alone. He'd say, "But that's not how I see the world." And I'd whisper, "That's exactly the problem." We started arguing more. Small things. Loaded things. The way he spoke to his mother when she called Ava exotic. How he laughed when his friend made a joke about black hair. He didn't mean harm. But harm doesn't need intent to hurt. There was one night. After another long day. Another classroom comment. Another silent pain. I sat down and said, "I feel alone in this." And he looked at me. Really looked. And said, "I don't know how to fix what I can't feel." That broke me. Not out of anger. But out of grief. Because I realized. Even in love. Even in marriage. There are rooms you walk through alone. I didn't want to resent him. He was still the man who held our babies at 2 a.m. Who rubbed my back when my cramps got bad. Who kissed me like he still meant it. But love with blind spots can still wound you. We started therapy. Joint sessions. He showed up. Not always perfectly. But consistently. He started reading. Listening. Calling out things he used to ignore. And little by little, we found each other again. Not on some perfect middle ground, but standing side by side. Owning our difference. Because love isn't the absence of conflict. It's the choice to keep learning through it. And we were still choosing. It was Ava who asked first. She was 8. We were driving home from school. She looked out the window, then turned to me and asked, "Why do people look at us funny when we're all together?" I swallowed hard. Because how do you tell a child that love doesn't always look like what the world expects? I reached for her hand. Told her, "People stare at things they don't understand, but that doesn't mean we're wrong." She nodded. But her eyes stayed sad. Then came Caleb. 10 years old. Tougher on the outside. Softer than clouds underneath. He came home one day with clenched fists. His shirt was ripped. His eyes, full of something I hadn't seen before. He said, "A kid on the bus called me a mutt. Said my daddy should have stayed with his own kind." I froze. Liam was standing behind him. Silent. His face, pale. Eyes glassy. I told Caleb, "You are not broken pieces of two halves. You are whole. You are both, and that is a kind of magic." He didn't believe me. Not that day. Maybe not for a while. But I kept saying it. Every chance I got. The hardest part wasn't what they heard from other kids. It was what they started asking themselves. Ava once whispered, "Would life be easier if I looked more like Daddy?" That one shattered me. Because I had asked myself the same thing once. And so, I started writing notes. Taping them to mirrors. To lunchboxes. To pillowcases. You are loved. You are seen. You are more than enough. Some days, they rolled their eyes. But I kept doing it. Because I knew the world would try to rewrite their story. And I had to make sure they had the right script. It happened in the fall. The leaves were turning. The air smelled like cinnamon and cold wind. Everything looked beautiful, on the outside. Inside our home, things were unraveling. Quietly. Like fabric losing thread. Liam was working longer hours. I was tired all the time. The kids had questions we couldn't answer anymore. One night, Ava came into the room crying. Said a classmate had told her, "Your mom's black, your dad's white, you don't belong anywhere." She asked me, "Where do I belong, Mommy?" I opened my mouth. But nothing came out. I turned to Liam. Hoping, just hoping, he'd say something. But he just looked at the floor. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, we argued. Loud. Raw. I told him I was tired of carrying this weight alone. That I couldn't keep shielding the kids from both the world and him. He shouted, "I'm trying, Maya, I'm doing everything I can." And I said, "Then maybe your everything isn't enough." Silence. Not angry silence. But the kind that wraps around your throat and won't let go. He slept on the couch. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Wondering how two people who once felt like home, could now feel like strangers. The next morning, Ava left a drawing on the fridge. It was of our family. 4 stick figures holding hands. 2 brown, 2 beige. And under it she wrote, "Together anyway." I broke down in the kitchen. Right there on the tile floor. Liam found me minutes later. He didn't say a word. Just sat beside me. Held my hand. And that was the moment. The shift. Not some Hollywood fix-it scene. But something real. Something honest. The breaking point wasn't the end. It was the beginning of us finally seeing what we'd been ignoring. Each other. Things didn't get better overnight. This wasn't some movie where one hug fixes everything. We had to rebuild. Brick by brick. It started with small things. Liam began asking questions, the hard ones. He didn't pretend to know anymore. He listened. Really listened. He read the books I had begged him to years ago. Started noticing things. The way clerks followed me in stores. How people ignored me but smiled at him. He called out his uncle at Thanksgiving. Told him to shut up when he said something slick about Ava's hair. And when Caleb got suspended for talking back to a teacher who called him aggressive, Liam didn't brush it off. He marched into that school with me. Didn't let me stand alone. We started family therapy. The kids opened up. Ava said she wanted to wear her hair big again. Caleb said he felt seen for the first time in a long while. We learned to speak love in new ways. Through truth, through mistakes, through showing up. And slowly, the house felt like home again. Messy, loud, but real. One night, Liam held my face in his hands and said, "I can't ever fully know what it's like to be you. But I'll never stop trying to understand." And that meant everything. Our kids still face the world with questions. So do we. But now, we face it together. With honesty. With love that doesn't pretend, but chooses. Again and again. If you've made it this far, thank you. Maybe you saw something of yourself in my story. Or maybe you didn't. But you listened. And that's how healing begins. You see, I didn't share this to make you sad. Or angry. I shared it because someone needs to know. You can break, and still rebuild. You can feel unseen, and still be worthy of love. Of safety. Of joy. You can come from 2 worlds, and still belong everywhere. Our story isn't perfect. It's complicated. Messy. Real. But every day, we choose each other. I choose to wake up and teach my children how to love their skin. To speak their truth. To stand tall. Even when the world wants them small. And Liam. He chooses to keep learning. To show up, even when it's hard. Even when it's uncomfortable. That's what love is. Not perfection. But the willingness to grow. Together. So if you're listening, and you feel like no one sees you, I see you. And if no one's ever told you this, you are enough. Just as you are.